name is Melissa Bridges, and this is my partner here, Dr. Paul Mayoni. We started working with couples about 3.5 years ago. Very passionate about working in this field and having an impact on couples in distress, and feeling like there's a huge gap in our field, and people that are in distress, they don't really have a lot of options. They go to one therapist once a week for an hour, and quite frankly, it's not very effective for them. So we decided to do something different and see if we could be helpful to these couples who don't have a lot of options.
Hi, my name is Dr. Paul Mayoni, and we have a great time seeing couples. We really enjoy the work that we do. We've been counseling couples now for 20 years, and we decided that we would work with a very difficult population, couples that are really struggling, people that have been to counseling before, possibly people who are in a crisis mode. And it's really our passion to work with couples and to give them different opportunities than the once a week for an hour that's offered by most therapists. And so we constructed a program where we get multiple professionals involved, multiple people who are experts on various aspects of couple life, and we use a team format.
Co-therapy team. We have 2 therapists, at least, a male and female therapist working with our couples. We also have a one-way mirror in our other room here, and we can actually bring 3 or 4 other of our colleagues to sit behind the one-way mirror, and we've decided that the more brains that we have focused on helping a couple or a family get to a better place, the better.
The couples we see tend to be the really hardcore cardiac arrest couples. I mean, we've seen people where there's a crisis, or they've been together for many years with lots and lots of sludge building up in their relationship, people who are really disconnected from one another. We like to say we see a lot of people who are living parallel lives, where there's just so much has gotten in the way, raising kids, careers, etc. And they really take a look at themselves after a while and say, you know, who are you? And so we provide a forum for couples to really dig deep into their relationship and where they're going, where they've been. And we can do things that aren't really possible in the kind of start-stop method of traditional once-a-week marriage counseling.
We have the additional time so that we can integrate things like the one-way mirror. We have a relationship coach that comes in and works with our couples, and we have the additional time to do that as well, and really give a couple an opportunity to get comfortable with us, get comfortable opening up to each other as much as opening up to us, to strangers, and so that we really can get down into the core of some of their issues and get to a resolution, as opposed to, as Paul said earlier, this start-stop method just really scratches the surface with couples or families, and then they have to come back a week later, and it really just didn't make sense for us. And working in this way, we have found it to be so extremely effective and beneficial for couples to just come in and just dive in and get to a resolution once and for all.
We started this project a few years ago in the wake of Hurricane Wilma. Hurricane Wilma came ripping through South Florida, and the office we had been practicing in was demolished, and pretty much we were starting from scratch. And it was a really good time for us to reevaluate what we were doing as clinicians and the direction we were moving in. And we said, you know, if we didn't have any constraints and we could work with a population and really try to be as effective as we can, what would that look like? We both had a passion for working with couples. We were both the type of people growing up where, you know, we had that sign on our forehead that said, "Talk to me, I can help," you know, like most people in our field. And we both had this real passion for working with couples and experience in that area. And we started to look at how it is that we practice traditionally, which is a very limiting model. We funnel all these couples into this model, regardless of what their situation is, regardless of what their problem is. And so we started one by one chucking out the rule book, the time constraint, the amount of therapist constraint, the way we were approaching our work was just totally different.
We threw out the rule book and we said, okay, if we got to write the rule book over again, what would it look like? And what would be helpful more helpful for the couples that we were working with. And so, like Paul said, one by one, we started chucking things out, and now we sit down with a couple or a family, and we don't even look at the clock. It's our intention to help them to get to a better place, and we try to do whatever it takes to get them there. And having that mentality going in to working with someone, it completely changes the context of therapy.
It's kind of funny looking back, because when we decided that we would work in co-therapy teams, a big issue that came up first was, well, we're not married. And most of the people doing this kind of boot camp mentality to couples work, and there really isn't a lot, but there are a few places across the country that have retreats and things of that nature. But a lot of times it's being done by married couples, and I'm married, I've got a family, and it occurred to
I'm
us...
single.
It occurred to us, you know, what does that look like, that you've got these two unmarried people? It kind of goes against the logic of what is practiced in our field to some degree. But when we stopped and took a look at it, we said, well, why? I mean, it really doesn't fit with our view of helping people that, well, so we're going to model this great relationship as married people, and we're going to show you, you know, how to do marriage right. I mean, we don't think like that as therapists.
It's really great because once we stepped outside of that stigma that we had to be married, we now have 8 co-therapy teams that work here at Couples on the Brink, none of which are married, coming from different cultures, different ages, some married, some not, and we found that it really just brings such a different perspective to the couples, and so they're able to get insights from all different walks of life. And oftentimes a married couple, they're kind of walking the same walk together, and so they don't have a lot of diversity within them. But when we set up our co-therapists, there's such a diversity there that if somebody doesn't connect as much to one person, then they're going to connect to the other, which is kind of our idea about having the male-female co-therapy teams.
Yeah.
That, you know, some of the couples that we work with, they have been to 4 or 5 other therapists. Therapists sided with one person, they go to another therapist, they sided with the other, and there's not really a balance in the room. And so working in this way that's just been one of the pieces that has been beneficial for our couples.
We've had the great opportunity to work with a real variety of couples. I'm thinking of the couple that came in, they were on their way to divorce mediation, and the husband had seen our website and hadn't talked to his wife about it, but on the way here just decided that he was going to drive here. And they got to our waiting room, and she was like, well, what is this all about? And he said, look, I found this online, you know, we've been talking about, do we give it one last try, and, you know, this is what I found. They came through our program, and they spent 12 hours with us over the course of 3 days, and they left in such a different place. They were no longer getting a divorce. They had so much more hope about their relationship. And they were thinking, my gosh, you know, we almost didn't come here. And it's not that we're these fantastic couples therapists. I mean, I think we're good at what we do, but really we practice all the same skills and all the same techniques that many couples therapists do. We just have put them in a format that works.
Well, and that same couple that you're talking about, Paul, I remember that we actually had 2 of our colleagues come and work with that particular couple. I think that we were working with someone else at the time, and they literally called and said, we're coming in an hour. Can you see us in an hour? And we called up one of our colleagues from Nova, and they were here, and they ended up working with that couple. And I want to say that might have been the first couple that they worked in this specific format. And they thought, what the heck am I going to do with somebody for 12 hours for 3 days? And they were so blown away by the outcome and this structure and this format that they actually, we presented at a conference over the weekend, and those 2 therapists, they actually had their own whole presentation specifically on working with that couple, just because it was so intriguing to them, and they found it to just be so amazing to work with a couple in such a short period of time and see such positive results.
Most couples that come through our program, when they get here, if they haven't been to counseling, or even if they have, they usually wind up